Right now, somewhere in regional Australia, there is a comfortable, freestanding family home for sale for less than the price of a brand new hatchback. Not a caravan, not a fixer-upper with a collapsed roof, a proper 3-bedroom house with a yard, a driveway, and neighbours next door listed for less than what most people would spend financing a mid-range car. If you're anywhere near retirement age and you've spent the last few years watching your superannuation statement with a knot in your stomach, that number should stop you cold. Because everything you've been told about retiring in Australia assumes you need hundreds of thousands of dollars just to keep a roof over your head. It assumes the city is inevitable. It assumes downsizing still means a mortgage. So what's actually going on here? Is this some digital myth? The kind of listing that turns out to be a shed with plumbing? Or a leftover shack nobody sane would live in? It isn't. These are real functioning towns. They have doctors. They have people clubs. They have people who've lived full, ordinary lives there for decades. And by the time we're done, you're going to understand exactly what they cost you in ways that have nothing to do with money, and whether that price is one you'd actually be willing to pay. The standard retirement advice in this country hasn't kept up with reality. It assumes a certain kind of ending: sell the family home, buy something smaller in the same city, keep your friends, your doctor, your postcode. For a huge number of Australians, that math simply doesn't work anymore. City property has outpaced superannuation growth for years, and downsizing within a capital city often barely dents a mortgage, let alone eliminates one. So we went looking for something different, towns that actually solve the problem. To make this list, each location had to clear 3 bars: genuine access to medical care, not a 2-hour emergency drive, a real functioning community with clubs, shops, and social infrastructure, and a median house price low enough to make financial independence realistic on an average retirement income. What we found stretches across the entire continent. Old goldfields towns with grand heritage streetscapes, a valley where autumn turns the whole town orange, a river mouth where retirees watch cargo ships drift past their kitchen windows, even a patch of Queensland cold enough to grow wine grapes and light a fire at night. Every one of these 8 towns comes with a trade-off. Some are climate, some are distance, some are simply pace of life. But by the end, you'll have a genuine, honest picture of what it actually takes to retire somewhere that won't quietly bankrupt you first. Let's start where the wheat fields begin, a couple of hours southeast of Perth. Town 1, Narrogin, Western Australia. In Narrogin, the median house price sits around $190,000 for an established brick home, often with a yard big enough for a proper vegetable garden and a shed. This is wheatbelt country, roughly 2.5 hours southeast of Perth, and the town has been a working agricultural hub for well over a century. Golden grain silos rise above the skyline, wide streets, solid, unpretentious brick homes built for families, not investors. What makes Narrogin genuinely viable for retirees isn't just the price, it's the infrastructure sitting quietly behind it. Comprehensive regional medical services, bowling clubs, sporting ovals still busy on weekends. It's the kind of town where a slower pace doesn't mean isolation, because the community itself is still active and intact. There's a particular kind of comfort in that, the sort of place where neighbors genuinely wave from their front verandas, where the local pharmacist knows your name, where a walk into town is still a social event rather than a chore. Of course, 2.5 hours from Perth is still 2.5 hours from Perth. For routine care, Narrogin has you covered. But if you ever need a specialist, a major hospital, or an adult child dropping by on short notice, that drive becomes part of your weekly calculation. It's a fair trade for a huge number of retirees. Peaceful, affordable, and connected enough to a capital city when it truly matters. From these golden wheat fields, the highway runs east, past the desert fringe, across the border, and straight into the shadow of one of Victoria's most dramatic mountain ranges. Town 2, Estee Well. Victoria Stowell sits right at the foot of the Grampians National Park, and the median house price here lands around $260,000. Genuinely low, considering what's essentially right outside the front door. This was gold country in the 1800s, and that history is written into the town's bones: sandstone facades, ornate Victorian shopfronts, a streetscape that still carries the confidence of a boomtown. even generations after the gold ran dry. Most Australians know store for one thing above all else: the Stawell GIF, the country's most famous professional foot race, held here every Easter since 1878. But for retirees, the real draw isn't the race, it's the mountains. The Grampians rise dramatically just beyond the town, offering some of the best hiking in the state, along with native wildlife, waterfalls, and lookout points that would cost a fortune to access from anywhere near a capital city. Stepping out your front door and directly into that kind of landscape is something for both body and mind that a retirement village courtyard simply can't replicate. Local community clubs here are genuinely tailored toward an older, active demographic. Walking groups, gardening clubs, social bowls, all built around the assumption that retirement should mean movement, not stillness. There's a kind of clarity that comes with mountain air after years of city noise. It's the sound of very little happening, and somehow that's the whole point. From the sandstone ridgelands of the Grampians, the Great Dividing Range keeps climbing north, all the way into the warm, golden light of inland North Queensland. Town 3. Charters Towers. Queensland. Charters was once so wealthy, so bustling, and so self-assured during the 19th century gold rush that locals simply nicknamed it the world. As in, why would you ever need to leave it? Today, median house prices sit near $230,000. And what that buys is genuinely remarkable. Grand, veranda-wrapped heritage homes on generous blocks in a townscape that looks like it's been lifted directly out of the 1890s. Elaborate ironwork, wide colonial verandas, entire streets that feel more like a film set than a functioning modern town. Located inland from Townsville, Charters Towers benefits from high winter sunshine averages, making the cooler months genuinely glorious, even as summer humidity demands some adjustment for anyone used to a temperate climate. The town also retains solid regional hospital infrastructure, a legacy of once being one of the largest population centers in the entire state. That's really the heart of the story here. Charters Towers was built for a population several times its current size, which means the infrastructure, the architecture, and the sheer physical scale of the town but never downsized to match. What's left is enormous value for anyone willing to move in and use it. Heritage-style blocks with room for a citrus orchard at a price that would barely cover a deposit back in Townsville. It's financial freedom wrapped in genuine architectural romance, stepping back into an old-world setting, drenched in golden outback sunlight, without stepping back in terms of comfort. From this preserved slice of gold-rushed grandeur, we're heading south now, down through the continent's eastern fold lines toward a river valley tucked beneath the northern approach to the Snowy Mountains. Town 4, Tijimu, New South Wales. This town might be the most visually striking entry on this entire list. Median house prices sit around $310,000, and for that, retirees get access to a genuinely postcard-worthy valley. Pristine trout rivers, towering pine plantations, and sweeping views toward the northern edge of the Snowy Mountains. This town is famous nationally for one thing in particular: its autumn foliage. Come April and May, Tumut turns a deep, glowing orange, drawing visitors from across the state just to walk beneath its avenues of turning leaves. For retirees who spent decades in cities where the seasons barely register beyond temperature changes, that kind of dramatic seasonal shift carries real emotional weight. Beyond the scenery, Tumut offers something practical too: a strong community healthcare network and an economy anchored by stable local forestry and paper industries, which has kept the town population steady rather than declining, unlike so many rural communities nearby. For active retirees, the appeal is obvious: fishing on genuinely excellent trout rivers, gardening in rich valley soil, long walks through crisp, cool winter frosts that give way to golden autumn and mild, pleasant summers. It's 4 distinct seasons done properly, without the inflated price tag that usually comes attached to anywhere this beautiful near the Alps. There's a particular kind of coziness in picturing wood smoke curling gently over a valley floor while leaves drift silently across the lawn. That image alone explains why so many people who visit Tumut never quite leave. From these frost-covered valleys, we're crossing south now, over the Murray Basin into the rich volcanic dairy country of South Australia's southeast. Town 5, Millicent, Selvis Raleigh. Millicent sits quietly between two of South Australia's biggest natural draw cards, world-famous wine regions to the north, and the rugged limestone coastline of the limestone coastline of the limestone coast just a short drive south. Median house prices here land around $250,000. What makes Mawson stand out isn't dramatic scenery inside the town itself, it's what surrounds it. Retirees here get genuine easy access to coastal fishing and scenic beach drives without paying anything close to actual coastal property prices. The volcanic soil throughout the region is exceptional too, making home vegetable gardens here far more productive than most transplants from the city expect. Millicent also benefits enormously from its proximity to Mount Gambier, a secondary regional capital just down the highway offering full hospital services, major retail, and specialist medical care. That combination, small town affordability paired with a genuine regional hub nearby, solves one of the biggest anxieties retirees have about moving somewhere quiet. What happens if something goes wrong? It's a strange kind of oversight, really, that this fertile green pocket gets so often skipped over by people chasing sea change property further down the coast, where prices climb dramatically the moment you're within sight of the water. Millicent offers most of that same coastal lifestyle, minus the premium. There's a calm, grounded satisfaction to that combination. Genuine coastal proximity, paired with small-town financial security, and a real hospital close enough that it stops being a source of worry. From this fertile southeastern pocket, it's time for a maritime leap across Bass Strait into the misty river estuaries of northern Tasmania. Town 6, Georgetown Town. Tasmania Georgetown holds a genuinely rare distinction. It's one of the oldest European settlements in the entire country, sitting right at the mouth of the Tamar River where it meets the sea. Median house prices here sit around $340,000, still remarkably low for genuine deep-water river frontage. This is a town built around water in every sense. Retirees here often speak about the simple pleasure of watching cargo ships and sailing boats glide past their windows, framed by rolling green hills on the opposite riverbank. Little penguin colonies nest along nearby stretches of coast. The climate stays mild and maritime, softened by the surrounding water in a way that inland Tasmania simply doesn't experience. Crucially, Georgetown sits within a genuinely short commute of Launceston, giving residents access to a full range of modern medical facilities without sacrificing the tranquility of rivermouth living. For anyone who loves boating, fishing, or simply the sound of water, this is about as close as regional Australia gets to a genuine maritime retirement at a fraction of what equivalent water frontage would cost almost anywhere else in the country. The honest question worth asking is how long this stays true. Launceston's property market has been climbing steadily for years, and towns within easy commuting distance tend to follow eventually. For now, though, Georgetown remains a rare pocket where deep maritime heritage and modern affordability still coexist. From these tranquil river mouths, we're heading back to the mainland, inland, uphill into a patch of Queensland cold enough to genuinely surprise you. Town 7, Stanthorpe PE, Stanthorpe is, by a wide margin, the coldest town most people will ever associate with the Sunshine State. Perched high on the Great Dividing Range, it regularly records winter frosts, occasional light snow, and temperatures that would feel entirely out of place anywhere else in Queensland. Median house prices sit near $330,000. That unusual climate is exactly what makes Stanthorpe special. This is the heart of Queensland's Granite Belt, home to a thriving boutique winery scene built specifically around cool climate grape varieties that simply can't grow in the state's tropical regions. Vineyards, orchards, and the genuinely active community of artists, winemakers, and tree changers have turned this into one of the most distinctive small towns in the country. For retirees, the appeal runs deeper than novelty. Stanthorpe offers a real seasonal variation. Cozy fireplace winters, vibrant summer orchard harvests, alongside solid local healthcare access and a location within manageable reach of both Brisbane and the New England Highway network, making visits from family considerably easier than in more remote parts of this list. There's a particular romance to the idea of sipping locally grown cool climate Shiraz beside an open fire while frost sparkles on the lawn outside, especially when you remember this is still technically Queensland. It's proof that a single state can hold far more climate diversity than most people ever give it credit for. From these frosty granite vineyards, it's time for one final push, back west, across the desert edge into Western Australia's historic northern farming belt. Town 8, Mora. Western Tan Israelia Mora sits along the winding Moore River in Western Australia's wheatbelt, and it closes out this list with the single lowest price point of the entire journey. Median house prices here drop well below $180,000. This is genuinely minimalist, budget-conscious retirement territory. For efficient downsizes, Mora represents something increasingly rare in Australian real estate. The realistic possibility of wiping out a mortgage entirely and living comfortably off a modest superannuation balance without financial stress hanging over a year that follows. The town carries classic country hospitality, local bowling greens, essential medical services, and a tight community that looks out for its own. Life here does come with real environmental demands, particularly hot outback summers and the need for careful, localized management around the river during wetter periods. It isn't a coastal escape or a mountain retreat. It's straightforward, practical, unpretentious rural living. But there's something genuinely profound in that simplicity. When your housing cost becomes a rounding error in your overall retirement budget, the entire equation of later life changes. Less financial anxiety, more freedom to actually enjoy the years you spent decades working toward. That's the quiet, unglamorous truth sitting underneath Mora's rock-bottom prices. Not a compromise, but for the right person, a genuine kind of liberation. And that idea, trading square footage and city convenience for real financial peace of mind, is really the thread that's run through every single stop on this journey. 8 towns, 8 completely different landscapes, and one consistent truth sitting underneath every single one of them. Cheap housing in Australia has never disappeared. It just moves somewhere quieter. Every town on this list trades something for its price tag: distance from a capital city, a slower pace or climate you'll need to adjust to, or simply the absence of familiar city conveniences. None of that is hidden or dishonest. It's simply the actual cost of financial freedom in a country where capital city property has drifted completely out of reach for so many people approaching retirement. What's worth remembering is that none of these towns are declining or desperate. They have doctors. They have community clubs, wineries, rivers, mountains, and neighbors who genuinely know each other. The trade-off isn't quality of life or affordability. Often it's the opposite. So here's the real question. Would you trade the city lights and nearby specialists for a heritage veranda in Charters Towers, or a debt-free wheatbelt cottage in Mora for under $200,000? Which of these 8 towns would you actually choose to grow old in? Somewhere past the edge of a capital city most people never think to leave. There's a quiet street, a low mortgage, and the slower version of life waiting for whoever's ready to make that trade.